So I've noticed something that I actually recently discovered, and that is how history repeats itself pretty much. History repeats itself, and what I mean by that is everything that you thought of before in the past has already happened, or you have a great idea, someone has already thought of that in the past. And whatever timeline it is, someone has already thought of that. I had a epiphany or whatever you want to call it the other day, and it was where I was trying to figure out the best way to learn. And I came up with this idea of using multiple perspectives, all right, and then taking those perspectives and understanding the concepts and then creating my own concepts with them. So let's say that I have an apple, an orange, and a blueberry, and I take a little sliver from each of the fruits, and then I put them all, make a foundation with them, and then I add a grapefruit, and then I add a regular grape, and then I add a dragon fruit, and then I add cantaloupe to that foundation myself, taking other people's perspectives and then adding on to that. And that is how I create my own foundation, using other people's perspectives on concepts and ideas, and then transitioning it and then transforming it into my own based off of their ideas, and then creating my own ideas from them. And my friend actually said that the book Mastery by Robert Greene said that it's the exact same topic of how people become masters in their own craft. And my friend uses a great example, Charles Darwin, who discovered the theory of evolution, and he did the exact same thing of using other people's perspectives and creating his own theory with it, using other people's ideas and creating his own theory with it. And you see this everywhere. You see it in Socrates and his philosophies. You see it in Hegel. You see it in Nietzsche. You see it in every person, where they get a perspective or a whole bunch of them from other people, and then they say, I agree with that, I don't agree with that, I will take that and I will use that, and then I will create my own philosophy with what you've given me so far. And that is how you learn. That is the definition of how you learn, and how learning about history actually benefits you. I blew this off so much when I was back in school. I thought history was completely useless. I was like, why do I even have to take this, right? It was stupid. I realized that I was completely wrong, ignorant about the world, how it worked. I dove into philosophy, and then I said, okay, well, now I gotta understand human psychology, how humans work. Okay, well, how do I figure out how humans work? Okay, well, I gotta look at history and how they acted in certain situations, and then I can predict how they'll act in future situations. All right, so you take the past, like Alexander the Great, or Napoleon, and how they went to battle and how they actually drew battle plans and conquered nations, conquered cities. You can interpret that concept of what they did and then use it in your own life, and then create a new battle plan with it, create something new with it. And that is what's called a visionary philosopher, pretty much. And anyone can do it. I've noticed is that you have to just, the hard thing is having an open mind, because a lot of people get fixated on one thing, and then they get shallow-minded, they get narrow-minded, whatever you want to call it, and they only look at one perspective and then think that's correct, which simply isn't true, because there's how many humans were born on the earth? Like over 100 billion in total. And that's how many perspectives you get on the world. All right, not just the 8 billion we have right now that are living, but I'm saying all throughout history, how many humans have lived. That's how many perspectives that you can learn from in total. And going back to how history repeats itself even before Socrates, even before civilization, I want to say. There were tribes who had chiefs, who had kings, what do you want to call it, I don't know. We'll say with chiefs. And these chiefs actually developed a plan of action to herd their people, to make their people better, to grow their civilization, grow their tribe. And this chief comes up with a great, persuasion tactic. Let's go with, logos, pathos, ethos, That was developed later on in the Greek times. But it actually wasn't developed. It just got labeled. That's all it was. It's the same information from the past labeled now in the future. It was so sophisticated that we didn't even have any like it would take a bunch of flowery language to explain it. Whereas 3 words explain the whole entire concept, and that's what history does, and that's what we can actually do to discovering new complex problems and situations. Let's say like space travel as an example, and there's going to be some random term that's going to have to be explained using 50 words right now, but it might be explained using 2 words in 5 years because we just simplified that, a certain concept, and so people just understand it and interpret it better. And it's the same way with everything, with absolutely everything. You have a computer now. Okay, well, how do you explain a computer to a caveman? That's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long conversation. And that's exactly what I'm saying. The chief back in the tribes had to, go through trial and error multiple times in order to fully understand the concept and then actually put it into action. You draw plans and then you do it. And they did not have a term for it because it was so sophisticated for, his or her time, that it was just so mind-blowingly impressive. And that's how, tribes grew and conquered other ones, because of the sophistication and knowledge that they consumed, they produced, and they actually went into action. They did it. They did the action of getting knowledge and using that knowledge, and then producing more knowledge on the knowledge that they have. All right, that's very, very important, is producing more than you consume. And a lot of people don't understand this. I'm still figuring out myself, to where the whole concept is also rather new to me. And just understanding the cycles of history, and understanding the actual flow of how people walk, talk, communicate is radically the exact same as, in the past. A good example is you can have a McLaren, a huge house, and a very, very healthy husband or wife. All right? You have everything you want, a good legacy. All right? You feel like you're a king. You have everything you ever wanted. I can use a good example as back in the day, a knight from, the medieval times would have the best armor, the sharpest sword, the keenest mind, the best skills to go into combat, and then he would be walking through the peasants' cities and towns. He must have felt like a complete king, walking through those towns, knowing he could destroy anything in his path. The same receptors fire off in those 2 scenarios. It's crazy. You get the same amount of dopamine from wearing a suit of armor to driving 200 miles an hour on a freeway in a McLaren. It's so interesting how the history literally can be predicted. All right, you understand this with cycles in the market, how day traders are, how different countries are climbing and falling all the time. The U.S. is on a fall, China's on a rise. We see that. We're going to clash here pretty soon, and it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And that's the same thing of the predictability and what history can teach you and the symmetrical ideas from time to time and era to era and to civilization, it's the same thing. All right? People do the same thing. The only thing that's changed is our technology. The Romans brought aqueducts to other cities, and then as an excuse, as a result, force the people in the cities to fight for them and their armies, which is completely genius. But it's the same thing. It's more on it's like a forceful Benjamin Franklin effect. I'm gonna ask you for a favor. I'm gonna bring you something. In return, you're more likely to like me because of it, and therefore I can, make you do things that I don't want to do or will benefit me. And you see this again all the time in history, where it's tribes gifting weapons or sheep or hides to someone else and saying in exchange, do this for me. It's simply trade. And then just simply asking for a favor from someone, that person is more likely to like you. It's the same psychology that goes on throughout history, and then building bonds, with people, and then growing your tribe, growing your city, your town, to actually create something and flourish. You get to a point where in history that civilizations grow so much that they don't need to worry about food or water anymore. They don't need to worry about surviving. And because of the abundance, the tribe or city fails. We're experiencing this right now with the abundance of everything, literally everything. And, man as a whole, as a human race, it has not grown to accept, or I want to say, understand this certain concept and be okay with evolving like this. An experiment was done on mice where they put 5 or so mice into a chamber that could support, I think, 3,000 mice, and the population capped at 2,500 and then plummeted, and they all died. Too much abundance is terrible for you, and we're experiencing that right now. We've also experienced this in the past, where we have too much of abundance of something, whether it's food, water, art, something, and the city just falls from another country coming in and taking advantage of our chaos or our unkeen intellect, and then we just crumble. And right now it's literally happening to the US, to the whole world. It is literally happening with our phones, with I can look up anything I can look up anything I want on my phone, and that's crazy. I can eat whatever I want. I can go wherever I want, to an extent. And just having that abundance, we're not ready for. No one has been ever ready for, because you have to think, all the cities and towns and tribes that have experienced this have fallen and have been lost in history. And no one talks about it because there's not enough information about it. It's like the joke, what do you do for a living? I hunt aliens, and then the person asks, that's not even a job. And then the person says, have you seen an alien before? And they respond with no. Exactly. It's the same thing, but true. Where a town has too much abundance and then they just die off. And it's crazy to think about, and it's crazy to say, but it's true. And then history just mulls over it by saying, oh, they got attacked by a tribe, or they got diseased, or some random crap happened, or they all just died. All right, and that could be true, but abundance helped speed the process of killing themselves. And it's scary that we're going through this other cycle right now of having an abundance of information. That's what it is. Abundance of everything, food, water. Literally, there's McDonald's everywhere in every corner. And then you get into the too much abundance, which leads to health problems and the undisciplined with people and how okay they are with being, well, how okay they are with not achieving anything because they already have everything given to them. You know, they don't strive for more. They're content with where they are. And back in the day, this is a little bit different. Back in the day, correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching this. Back in the day, there was people that, or kings that told peasants, this is where you belong because you grew up here and you can't do this job because simply where you are right now, forever. You have to farm. You have to be a butcher. You have to be a blacksmith for your entire life because that's just who you are. That is who you are. In our reality right now, in our modern world, we actually have a choice to be whatever we want. You see content creators making millions. You see plumbers making six figures. You know, you see people taking virtual ballet lessons. Okay, these things that are all across the board make it so you can be whatever you want, do whatever you want. Like, I can be a pro boxer, you know, right now, if I just practice a whole bunch, you know, from, you know, teachers or whatever source of knowledge and action that I take, I can be one. I have that choice to be a pro boxer. I have that choice. And because history has been brought up to where you didn't have a choice before and now you do, people are freaking out because it's not that we have choices, it's that we have an abundance of choices too. You can do so many things that no one does anything. It's so interesting. A few people do some things. You know, the 15-year-old kids making millions of dollars. Good for them. But it should be the opposite. You know, you think. You have an abundance of stuff, so I'm going to eat everything. Right? I have an abundance of information, so I'm going to learn everything. But you don't see that. The libraries are empty. Google searches are completely stupid. I mean, including mine. But people don't take the time out of their day to actually learn new things. And society suffers for that because back in history, they didn't have a choice. They were given a job and they did it for the rest of their whole lives. But now, since we have a choice, it should be, I'm gonna go, you know, get money. I'm gonna get my bag up. I'm gonna be disciplined. I'm gonna be, you know, an amazing human. And that isn't the case at all. That simply is not the case, and it should be. But even so, it shouldn't be, because our nature is to survive. Our nature is to survive, and having an abundance of things is unnecessary, because we can survive on ramen. We can survive on a one-bedroom apartment that we're paying rent for our entire lives. These are not ideal, but we live anyways. We survive. And that's what the human race is struggling with, is just transitioning from how to not survive, but to strive and be successful and actually build a legacy. There are exceptions in history, of course. There are exceptions. A lot of people that are exceptions were royalty, or they had a good turn of events in their life that made them, you know, just jump on an opportunity. And because we have so many opportunities, no one's jumping anymore, because Back then, opportunity was super scarce, so people would pick it up instantly. But now, if you have 100 cakes, okay, well, I'm only going to take one. But if you only have 2 cakes, I'm going to take both. You know, it's the scarcity. It's what ads do as well. And that's what people back in the day did. Had only 2 opportunities. Live or die. You know, and then you have one opportunity within living, which is, you know, like, get more money. As an example, you could be a wandering trader. And that would be your opportunity for your entire life. You know, you could walk the deserts and trade with people. You could set up a shop in a local market. But because we have so much opportunity, it's absolutely terrible. Nobody knows what to do, and nobody has a direction at all. Nobody learns. Few exceptions, of course. And it's hurtful to see. It is stressful. I have a vision of where the human race is going to go in the future because of the predictability from the past of what people did and didn't do, and they died or they lived. All right, so I'm going to live because I know how to live a good life. I'm figuring out my stuff. I'm always learning, and I'm figuring out how to learn as well, and then teaching that. So that's my path. I figured it out. But a lot of people don't have it figured out yet. A lot of people don't want to figure it out. They want to be trapped in their ways forever. And if you consume more than you produce, you're just a bad human, in my opinion. I think it should be the opposite. And you shouldn't complain about your situation then at all if you're consuming more than you produce, because at that point, I mean, you're only hurting yourself. So complaining becomes irrelevant. It becomes even more irrelevant when you consume more than you produce, because complaining in general is terrible. But when you get trapped in your own mind with, you know, the safety and survival instincts that you have in abundance that you consume so much, then I mean, that's your fault, and that's you trapping yourself from what reality actually is. That's you creating your own reality and then making a separate version, going to an extreme extent, you know, trapping your own mind in yourself completely from having scarcity and abundance. Interesting to think about. But that's what's been on my mind. Thank you.